Oh, we're live. Okay. Hi, everyone. Thank you for being patient in a real me move. I was having a few technological goof ups, but we're here. I'm live. For those of you who are new to me, I am Andrea Donnelly. I am a quantum sound and energy healer, and I am here with one of my absolute favorite people, who is one of my wonderful clients, Colleen Faltot. She is an energetic weight loss coach and a transformational and embodiment leader who works with people to really help them move through the ways that we all, right, just from a human perspective, we can really struggle with things like patterns of codependency and shame, low self-worth, the things that really gum up our wheels essentially and prevent us from being able to really rise to our own occasion and anchor into the deep truth of who we are. So I'm really proud of her. She is in the middle. Today is March 20th, which is the first day of Aries season, and it is the spring equinox. And Colleen is celebrating her highest month in business. So I'm so proud of her because this is really about the energy of celebration. And I am also celebrating. The first week in March was my highest week in business, which was amazing. So this is just a lot of really vibrant energy in the air right now. For those of you who know what I'm up to, you know that that's one of the things that I do is I read the collective energy. And we are really ripe right now with opportunity and an ability for each of us to really just move into the most aligned version of us that could exist. So anyway, super proud of you, Colleen. Really happy to be here. Welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, you are so, I'm really happy to have you here. Is there anything else that you would like to say by way of the work that you do? Why don't you tell people also a little bit about your own journey and how you found me? Because I know from the back end that you have been on a really deep, many-year-long journey of self-discovery, healing, really moving through some massive things that have landed you where you are and in my world. And yeah, just share a little bit more about that, because it's really inspiring and it's really powerful what you have transmuted and moved through in the past couple of years.
Thank you so much. So my name is Colleen Faltot. As Andrea said, I'm an energetic weight loss coach, and my Instagram handle is actually the self-sabotage coach, because that's what I was able to move through. Some deep, deep, deep patterns of self-sabotage. And with that gift, right, with that embodied wisdom, as Andrea always calls it, I'm able to see patterns in clients. I'm able to really step into a true mentorship role and help them untangle, again, using one of Andrea's words, from just patterns of self-sabotage based around one of the three fears, maybe all of them together: the fear of success, the fear of failure, and the fear of letting go, the fear of moving on from the known, even if the known is causing us pain, right? The fear of moving out of this state of fight or flight, our central nervous system, being on constant defense, waiting for the next shoe to drop, becomes an addiction in its own.
Yeah, it really does. It becomes an addiction, and it's interesting because I don't know that everyone would necessarily realize that having forward motion, that anchoring into the things that are really exciting and dynamic to you can cause a sort of resurgence of unprocessed emotions and trauma. But failure, certainly we know failure can be really devastating, but we also, a lot of times we don't understand in our culture that succeeding, anchoring into the things that you're excited about can also really create some instability, because what ends up happening, and I see this in my work all the time, and I'm sure that you see this with clients of your own, we want the thing. We are like, I want to be successful. I want to make a lot of money. I want to be visible. I want to do all these things and have, a really like luxurious, dynamic, successful life. And then the truth is as you move into these things that you may genuinely want in your life, if you have areas that are out of alignment, whether it's people, whether it's situations, whether it's, it can be patterns of codependence with family. There are all sorts of sort of sneaky ways that success can actually be hyper triggering for people. You hear about it all the time when you think about things like we see celebrities who who have like a really massive burst of success. And then, you hear years later that they lost all their money and that, the X, Y, and Z thing happened. It happens to lottery winners too, right? Where we can have these really massive up levels, but if you haven't done the work to really stabilize your foundation, all of that rapid motion upwards can actually create a lot of chaos in your life. And it doesn't need to be like that, because what can happen, right, is we can reach out to people like you, like me, and really find a way to be heavily supported as we move upwards, so that we're still, it's not to say that you're not still going to end up getting triggered, but what it does mean is you get to have someone like me in your pocket, right? Someone who can be your secret weapon, who, when you have those moments of instability or, panic, freak out, where you're like, oh my God, like my entire world is falling apart. If you think about it in terms of tarot, right? Like the Tower card, when you have the capacity to create something new and really vibrant, it's just part of one of the universal laws of expansion. If there are parts of your life that are not moving in concert with this vision and this version of you that is the person who's, out there killing it, really like doing an incredible job, making tons of money, having a really vibrant life, those situations, you're going to have tower moments, right? As you move into that version of you, because the things that are misaligned, again, the people, the places, the situations, the patterns, all of those things are going to come up, and you have got to really own them so that you can continue to operate from a place of really like strong, grounded grace and ease.
Absolutely.
And I think that's one of the things that I do. You and I have been working with each other since the fall, and I have just witnessed you really move so quickly since working with me. And that's one of my greatest gifts. I think, I have a client who always says that one of the reasons why I have helped her, and why she thinks I'm so gifted at what I do with people, and it can be a little hard to explain what I do with people, what I'm talking about, because what am I doing, right? I'm doing like 100 things at once. I'm working in your Akashic records, I'm doing energy healing. You're in Gold Standard, which starts in the middle of next week, which I'm really excited about. So you've done group journeying with me, and you have also been one of my private clients. So we work with each other one-on-one. You're one of my celestial mentees, is what I call my private. I call that celestial mentorship. And what it's really about is me holding space for you and everyone with whom I work, because I have this very unique capacity to really see the truth of who you are. I from the time I was a little kid, I could essentially look at someone, and if you think of it in like computer terms or something, I basically, when I meet people, I get a download that shows me what their highest potential is. And that is a really amazing gift. It's been, a journey for me to essentially land in this place now where I do this professionally, where I am a, professional. One of my first business coaches used to call me the witch to the sages. And I love that as like a term for what it is that I do, because I work with really high achieving, brilliant people who came here with a really clear, vision for something that they were going to do that was going to be really unique and was going to essentially change the landscape of possibility on this planet. And so the people I work with all have something really big, really vibrant, really amazing that they incarnated. They chose to come here now, like you did, right? To help people to untangle from these enmeshments that make it hard for us to be able to just like live our best life, essentially. So I do a really unusual like mashup of a bunch of different things. I do energy work. I work in the Akashic records. I use my psychic gifts. I channel light language. You and I, as part of your one-on-one, we check in with each other. You check in with me on Voxer. You share, the mindset things and the stuff that's coming up for you. Because again, I think that's one of the I think that's like a point of confusion for some people. They don't realize, and I totally appreciate this, right? Because we live in a world where social media is everywhere. You can create an image of yourself. And this is not to judge anybody, but I think a lot of times people can sort of look at someone who's like moved further than them in their interpersonal or professional life. And we can get a little bit of like FOMO, like, oh my God, that person out there has like achieved this and I haven't, and we can, get ourselves in a little bit of a twist about that. But the truth is, no matter what kind of success you have as a human, the point is not, we're never going to be perfect. We're all always, no matter how successful you are, no matter how beautiful your life is, there are always going to be things that we need while we're in a human body to essentially learn, right? And I really believe that struggle can be a really beautiful catalyst for growth. Obviously, we want to minimize that, right? But when you look at the pain points in your life, and you've had a lot of pain points, you've had a lot of things that have come up, especially in the past couple of years, where you were really called to meet yourself in a totally new place and say, all right, I'm going to do these things to really meet myself somewhere new because I don't want to participate in those old patterns anymore. So what do you feel like, especially in the past like 6 months since we started doing one-on-one with each other, how have you shifted? We were talking before we started about, your sort of what landed you in this place of being in your highest month, but share a little more about that.
Sure. So when I met you, I was at the tail end of my dark night of the soul, very dark night of the soul. It started in the beginning of COVID. I was running a gym, an in-person brick and mortar gym. It was going gangbusters. It was like everything that I wanted it to be. I had just won an award for best group fitness facility in my area. And I was so unhappy. I was so unhappy in my life. And so I got a divorce thinking that it was my ex-husband and I was going to divorce him and life was going to be so much better. When in reality, we weren't meant to be together, but I was projecting a lot of my own insecurity, anger, pain onto him. Right. And then COVID hit. And so obviously having an in-person gym was very much affected. And then I got entangled in this very narcissistic relationship that was pretty bad. It got pretty bad. And then I got breast implants to be enough, right? I am enough tattooed right here because for way too long of my life, I didn't think I was. And part of my work is reminding myself and my clients every day, they are enough, they have always been enough, and they will always be enough. And so I went very downhill. I spiraled very quick over a 6-month period of time. And I am an alcoholic that was in sobriety when COVID happened and I picked up again. And I felt like the biggest victim of my life. I felt like life was all happening to me, not for me. And that's one of the things that Andrea, one of her first affirmations for me was, everything is happening with and for me. Everything is happening with and for me. And I say that at least 20 times a day. And I feel it from the tips of my toes all the way up to the top of my head. Right. And so, yeah, life got really, really bad at one point. I was in a lot of pain, a lot of spiritual pain, right? There's 4 forms of pain: physical pain, emotional pain, relationship pain, and spiritual pain. And spiritual pain is said to be the worst kind of pain, that regret, that shame, that spiritual heartbreak that really can tear someone apart. And so I was looking to untangle myself from so much toxicity that I had just dove headfirst into, kind of like magnetize myself to on some level. And I couldn't get out of it. I would, take 2 leaps out, 1 leap back and whatnot. And I was truly like addicted to these pain cycles. I was addicted to what life was supposed to be, trying to force my will in this very masculine energy. I was in very masculine energy. Like, I need to control it. This is what life is supposed to be. Right. And I went on a healing journey. I started really, I want to say over 2 years now, I started getting my first meditation coach. And for me in the beginning, meditating for 5 minutes, 3 times a week was like pulling all my hair out. And I just told Andrea before I got on the call, I meditated for over an hour just now before the call. And I try and meditate an hour a day. It's life-changing, really. But obviously you have to get to a place that you can be there to do that. And so I started on my healing journey. I got help for the alcoholism that I relapsed into. And I realized that everything was a symptom of something deeper, right? The drama in relationships, I had issues with food, I had issues with alcohol, issues, with being happy. That was all a symptom of something deeper, my lack of self-worth and my lack of self-love. And I was taking so much in life for granted. And if I really didn't extremely press hold and look at my attitude and my belief systems around life, it wasn't going to get better.
Yeah. Because when we have all of that, I call it our bag of rocks, right? When we have this emotional baggage that we're carrying around with us, it makes it really hard to be able, essentially the way that I see it, right, is if we come into this life with all kinds of past experience, all kinds of past knowledge from the lives that we've lived on Earth and in other places too, right? Because our souls are much bigger and more dynamic than anything that most of us can even perceive from a human perspective. So we come in with all of that. And we also, and this is something that I talk about a lot, you hear me talk about this often. And it is the fact that we have these epigenetic inheritances. This has been studied in mice. I think in mice it goes back 11 generations, if I'm remembering correctly, in terms of the fact that we literally inherit things from the generations that came before us, fears, anxieties, those moments when a great grandparent of ours wasn't safe. That stuff actually comes into our field of experience in ways that from a scientific and spiritual perspective, we're still moving into understanding that from a spiritual and scientific perspective. It hasn't been researched with humans, but I feel very confident just knowing, that we're so genetically similar to all of the life on this planet. And so if it's true of mice, then I feel very comfortable knowing that it's true in humans too. And to imagine that, right? To really sit with that and think about the fact that so again, it goes back to this idea that we were talking about, this energetic bag of rocks. When I work with people, because of the way that I, interdimensionally, essentially really lean into the entire expanse of who you are, I can see places where you need to essentially heal. And I use this technique that I have crafted over decades. You know, we were talking about meditation, and I learned how to meditate when I was 17. And I learned another style of meditation a couple of years after that called the Flower of Life meditation when I was a senior in college. And that was wild because that was like one of the most multi-dimensional, just like wild things that I have ever had the opportunity to study and learn. And so I went down the rabbit hole a long, long time ago. Like I have always been I come from a family of very psychic people. You know, there was a lot of mystical things in my childhood. I talked to my guides from the time I was a baby. I channeled light language from the time I have memories. So like I've always been hyper woo. And that's one of the gifts of working with me, is that because I have been on this really long personal journey where I have been essentially fine tuning my craft for a really long time. I've studied energy medicine. I got my first and second Reiki attunement after I graduated from college around 2001. Like I said, I started meditating at a young age. I've studied all kinds of things: herbal medicine, flower essences, all kinds of different energy modalities. And I've always been hyper interested. I, have studied the Akashic records. I've done all kinds of different things because, like, to me, but this is my life's work. So it's written into my human design and my astrological chart. Like, what I go deep. And that is one of the cool things about working with me, is that you get to essentially leverage that level of expertise and really benefit. If you think of it like, that idea of osmosis, like sort of learning something through the energetic field. When you work with me, I hold you in that space of transformation. And I myself have lived through some ish. Like I have been on, as much as I have also always been on a very deep, very like self-aware spiritual journey. From a human perspective, this has not been the easiest thing for me to be in a human body. I've been in multiple car accidents. I had debilitating chronic pain for many years. I have really been through, I've had to heal some really deep, like, money trauma that I was born into. It's been a real time for me. And so one of the things about me is I can look everyone in the eye from a human perspective. And really, I don't spiritually bypass. I don't pretend that the human journey is so many amazing things. It's beautiful. It's dynamic. We can learn how to really like navigate it with as much grace and ease as possible. And it's not simple. I don't think we come here to necessarily have it be easy. I think that there is something to this idea. If you think about even really beautiful things in nature, right? Pearls and diamonds. Pearls and diamonds are two of the most gorgeous things I am a massive fan of jewelry. So that, and you and I both, like, we both studied design. We love fashion and ornamentation. So it's one of the things that you and I really like understand and bond over, is that love for beauty. But diamonds are born from, pressure, and pearls literally form out of agitation. And so if you think about that, not that I want anyone to struggle, that's not it, but there is a sort of meeting yourself in that place of awareness and saying, you know what, because it ties back to that idea of everything is happening within for you. What if the crummy things that have happened to you are actually just a catalyst or a trigger, essentially, for you to be able to uncover the truth of who you are? Right? Because when things are comfortable, and this is just an unfortunate truth of being human, when we are comfortable, we reasonably want to sit in that comfortability, right? We don't want the tower moment. We don't want the agitation. But again, if you sort of cycle back to that vision of the pearl, if we have just a tiny grain of sand that gets in and really starts to ruffle our feathers and get us like agitated, to think about the fact that, you know, months, years later, it can basically be this phenomenal gift, this gorgeous moment in time. Like pearls are so beautiful. There's a phrase, right, that we're all familiar with, that idea of like pearls of wisdom. And there is something to that, right? That we kind of do need to walk through our own fire in order to become really embodied in our own wisdom. And you have been, and I'm not laughing at you, you know that, but I'm just like chuckling because you've been through it. I mean, that journey that you talked about going through in the past couple of years, what a wild freaking time you have moved through. Your entire life basically collapsed, right? You had known a lot of success. That's one of the things about you that's so brilliant, is you came into this business of being an energetic weight loss coach with a lot of business acumen. Like you had a really successful brick and mortar gym. You had worked with people, you know so much about the human body and about what is required of us. So you also came into this in a lot of ways. I think there's a lot of similarities just in terms of the way that I have moved into my own journey, where you spent a long time working with people and helping them essentially anchor into their dream body and helping them to be able to really feel like safe and comfortable. And then you acquired all this 3D knowledge, right? You like learned all this stuff about our physiology and all of this, and you help people get to this. And then you were like, there's more, you know, granted the pandemic and everything that happened in 2020, you know, essentially gave you an opportunity to meet yourself in this place of realizing there was more to it than that. But what an incredible journey. Like you learned all the 3D stuff, and then you moved so gracefully and you said, all right, my world is collapsing. Everything is clearly going to be really different going forward. Like literally every year, your marriage is falling apart. You're having to own your own trauma and like sitting the energy of going through the process of like being in rehab and doing all of these things. And you had surgeries and you had all of this stuff that got really like jostled up. And then you realized that the truth about you was that you were then supposed to take all of that wisdom married into what you had already learned when you owned your gym, when you were super successful, you were winning awards, you were like you knew this really beautiful level of success, and then take that essentially and figure out how to alchemize all of your experiences and take it and basically create something even more dynamic and newer, because you took all of that wisdom that you had and you said, there's more to it than that, right? You knew that when you were helping people, you know, get strong, get healthy, all of that stuff, that there was an emotional component to the experience of feeling safe enough in your body to lose weight. And I think that's one of the things that you really shine in that capacity. Like people really are able to anchor into a new level of physical embodiment when they work with you, because you know that the 3D is more complicated.
Thank you. Yeah. And I think too, one of the big things is that people think I need to lose 10 pounds and I'll be happy. I want to get visible abs and I'm going to be happy. I want this like material thing to come and I'll be happy. And that's not the case. It's not the case. No car, no vacation, no house. Like we're just running off adrenaline, running from our unhealed trauma. So many people, you know what I mean? Like really look at your desires. Do you desire them from an ego-driven place, or you desire them because it's going to make you happy and it's going to slow your head down? It's going to get you off that autopilot that 90% of our thoughts are in. You know, we live in a society that breeds insecurity, and we don't even realize how many of our actions are just really predicated by our insecurities rather than like what's really going to make us happy in life. You know, and it's funny, I was talking to someone yesterday. I was talking to a friend of mine that's a spiritual life coach yesterday, and she was like, I'm so grateful for this car accident I was in, very similar to yours. And I said, I'm so grateful I'm an alcoholic. I am like, I'm so grateful for all the struggles I've been through, because I can say that I'm truly happy for the first time in my life from working with you 6 months ago. I had a brick wall up. And it was killing me. It was like, I almost want to say like my soul was on the bottom and there were just bricks piling on top of it. It wasn't even a wall. It was like bricks were on top of my soul. And I didn't see much hope. And then I met you, and brick by brick, you took them off and allowed me to live again.
Yeah. Yeah. And there is just something, I mean, I'm so passionate about this. Like, I get like literally brought to tears thinking about like, so you can attest to this. Like, I am a corny bee who will like, I get so emotional thinking about the massive transformation, because this, to me, there's genuinely nothing more important right now. There's that quote from Gandhi: be the change you want to see in the world. And just for those of you who are not familiar with my backstory, I'll do it as quickly. I can be a real talker, so I'm not going to get bogged down by it. But the like 1-minute version is that my parents met as peace activists. Like I said earlier, had a very deep metaphysical connection to my spirit guides from the time I have memories. So from a 3D perspective, my parents were peace activists. I have a degree in American studies, so I've studied, the history of colonization, both in the Americas and around the world. And there is a lot of really intense trauma that all of us, no matter where you are from, no matter how perfect from an external perspective your life might be, every single person who is alive right now. I remember years ago reading a book of like channeled Pleiadian information. This was like, I don't know, in the early aughts. And there was a line in the book that I've never forgotten that was something to the effect of, if you were alive on Earth right now, you are a hero. And I remember reading it and being like, yeah, that's super true. Like, this place is it's a really wild, very beautiful opportunity to learn and transmute and heal a lot. But the human journey can be really messy. And I think that's one of the things about me. Like, I possess this really surreal level of spiritual IQ, as it were. Like, I am really gifted in terms of understanding the deeper reason behind things. And that's awesome, because it makes it so I can look at the most steaming pile, the dumpsteriest dumpster fire of all, and be like, oh, but you know what? Here's what that did for you, right? And in some ways that can be irritating. Like, I know that sometimes people can just be like, oh, like, there she is over there with her, rose-colored vision of like the dumpsteriest dumpster fire. However,
remember that one time I was describing something that was just really awful, and I cringe when I think about it. And she was like, well, it's not ideal, but let's move on. And I'm like, we cracked up on our call.
A lot.
That's great. It was just like, because that's what you do. You spin it into, we're gonna make it good. We're gonna make it positive. We're not sitting in this like disgust of our life or how it's been or any of our actions. We're taking action. We're making it positive.
Yeah, we're going to look at that situation, which is hyper, perhaps deeply embarrassing. All the shame is coming up, right? Oh my God, who wants to have to face their shame? Like, right? In some ways, we want to say like nobody wants to, because it's brutal. It's so uncomfortable. It's deeply embarrassing.
Well, it's painful. It's painful.
And
That's
it's like, it's spiritually painful. And that is, from my perspective, having, lived through a lot. Like, when I was in the womb and a little kid, my parents used to take me to peace marches. And like, I have been observing this planet since since I was here. And the conclusion I have come to after decades of metaphysical study, having studied the history, having been an activist, having been, a young punk who was out on the streets and really care so much about transforming this planet, I really believe at this point that if those older ways, right, that sort of model of activism of using something like politics or a social change to really shift things, I'm not saying there's not a time and a place for that, but I really believe that if those things were going to fix the problems that we are experiencing as a human collective, right, that essentially drive us to fall back into those habits of codependence and addiction and trauma cycles and trauma bonds. If all of the things from a 3D perspective were going to be able to get us to move our needle, I think we'd already be there. I think at this point, it really is genuinely an inside job, essentially, to say, all right, the way that I am going to create a ripple effect through space and time in my life, in my kids' life, in the lives of my community and this planet and what is possible, is to really go deep, to sit with all the stuff that is hyper uncomfortable, the shames, the traumas, the low self-worth, all of that, and just be like, you know what? Old me, I love you, baby. I'm going to shine a lot of light and a lot of love, and I'm going to use something, right? In my case, energy healing, this energy technique that I've essentially created, which uses all these different very woo-woo things. But it's interesting because you were talking before about the reality of meditation and how when you started meditating a couple of years ago, you could barely stand to do it for 5 minutes. And now you meditate for an hour a day. And to think about that, there was a study that was done at Harvard, I don't know, I want to say 15 years ago, where they researched the impact of meditation on people's brains. It changes our brain. It changes our brain to meditate. Science doesn't necessarily understand how this works, but science has seen, there have been studies on prayer.
Yeah.
Prayer works. The thing is, we are way more connected to a sense of divinity than a lot of people at this point want to admit or, lean into or fully understand. But when you do, it creates this wild capacity for you to be able to completely change your life, to start to be really living in the vibration of joy, so that no matter what comes your way, right? Obviously, the goal is to be fully aligned and to have the most beautiful life possible. But again, from a human perspective, we're still going to have things that are uncomfortable, that sort of force us to show up for ourselves. And the more you can go deep with your own healing, the easier it becomes to do that. And the more money you make, the more joy you experience. You have better sex, you have a more joyful life, your physicality changes. I'm turning 44 this year, and my entire life, people have been like, tell me your skincare routine. What's your secret? This has been going on for decades, right? Where I would not see someone for 5 years, and then I'd see them and they'd be like, what is this fountain of youth that you've unlocked? And I was like, I could tell you, to be very clear with you, I drink a lot of water. I eat a good diet. I care a lot about my body and my beauty and all those things. And spirituality is the hottest glow up in town. I swear that the thing, and I would say this to people, I'd be like, listen, I can give you a rundown on what my routine is. I can tell you the supplements that I take. I can tell you all of that. But I swear the common denominator is not the things that are external. It is my spiritual practice. And now being able to see it in people, right? Creating that profound glow up in your bank account, in your physical body, in the way that you move through the world, and being able to really feel comfortable taking a lot of risks. Because there's, to go out there on the street and be like, well, after owning a gym for X number of years that was really successful, now I'm going to sell you an intangible product, right? That's about energetic weight loss. A lot of people are like, what on earth does that mean?
And the people that get triggered most by it are the ones that need it the most. But that's not for me to tell them. Anytime we're triggered by something someone's doing, right? If I'm seeing what Andrew's doing and I'm like, what do you do? Tell me. Like, I need to know how it works, which, to be honest with you, was kind of me when we started. Right? I was like, we had, I'd have to share this. We had a sales, I did a one-off with you. It was like you and Lydia were doing a special, and I did a one-off with you purely to work with you. I had been watching for all, I felt so drawn to you, and I felt the biggest shift. And then you had offered me the celestial mentorship, and I was like, what is it? You were like, well, and you were explaining it, and I was like, no, what is it? You were like, I forget your exact words, but you were essentially like, listen, like, you need this. And if you're not going to take it, I'm not going to have any more conversations with you about it. And I was like, because you're such a kind, gentle person, and you kind of like dug your feet in and are like, listen, like, you had this session, you know how good it's going to be. If you're not on board with it, I can't help. And I was like, sign me up.
The thing is, and this I'm laughing because right, like, people do one session with me and they're like, oh my God, I'm a completely different person. Like, what did you just do? And it has taken me a long time from a human perspective to find words that in my mind, like, even my clients, people I've worked with for literally years, who are also really high level, like, energy wizards, are like, I don't even know how to explain what you do. I'm talking to you, and 1 minute I'm like telling you something about my life. The next minute, you're waving your hands and you're mumbling something, which is light, like code for light language. I'm like channeling light language, and then the next second, like, all my problems are gone. And that is, years ago, I had a reading from someone who is like a real wizard. And she said to me, she was like, you have this wild capacity. You literally, the way she put it was, she was like, you are basically like a sin eater. You clear people's trauma, and you do it using energy in this way that is going to be more and more and more important as we lean. And that's why I had such a crazy experience this time around, was that I needed to remember all of this wisdom that I have carried through lifetimes. And someone else really brilliantly called it, like, I got another reading from someone last year, and the way he described it was, he was like, you've carried a gift through lifetimes where you literally wave your fingers and you make the people around you millionaires. And what he meant by that was that as I work with people, as I help people shift their energy and clear all of that energetic, those rocks that we're all carrying around, makes a lot of room to be able to sit in your truth and to find a way to be able to expand your life and start to make money in a way that works within for you, right? And that's the thing, is like, there's no one size fits all. That's the other reason why it can be hard for me to explain what I do for people, because I'm like, every person I work with, it's a really deep, very singular journey. The things you need might be similar to what somebody else, obviously there are themes that we all are working through. But the other thing is, I get real laser focused on what is going to work for you, how we can get you to move your needle so that you start to see yourself like I do. Because, right, as I mentioned at the beginning, I see the highest potential that you have in this lifetime. Like, I always see you, on big stages, really like pumping people up and inspiring them and create, and that may be a few years out, right? It's like all part of a journey. A lot of my clients say that one of the things about me is I see things so far in advance, sometimes it literally takes years to integrate. And I also help you in big and small ways to be able to like move that needle. So anyway, I am so flipping proud of you. I know that we need to wrap it up in another like couple minutes or so. So if you, is there anything else that you want to share about, like, what would you say to someone who is thinking about working with me? And then also, if you can just tell everybody how to find you, how to reach out to you. We'll make sure that the links are all here. But Colleen has some really cool ways of working with her. She has a Facebook group. Anyway, I'll stop talking.
Andrea has allowed me to feel love for the first time in my life. Like I could cry right now. I didn't realize the amount of work I needed to do to actually love myself and let love in until Andrea held me in her space and cried with me and just held me in a way that I didn't know was possible. And now I say the words, I love you to people, and I actually know what it means. And that's just, Andrea has given me the biggest gift I've ever been given. And if you have an opportunity to work with her, it's invaluable. Like you can't put a price on the shift Andrea creates in people's lives. I know many people that work with her. I know many people that know her, and across the board, Andrea's work is just magic, pure magic.
Thank you so much. It is my honor. And it's my passion. You know, I really believe that in order for us to get out of this mess that we've made from from an earth perspective, that to help you remember how powerful you are, to remember that you are a child of source and divinity and love and magic, and then be able to go out there and say, I'm a person of a good heart and a good mind, and I have a freaking vision to be able to then use the money, right? That's the thing, is like, it's so wild because people use that energy that I hold you in to then be able to go out and really shift the way that you earn money and relate to the world and support yourself and your family. And that, to me, that's like that's what this is all about, is helping to foster that energy in every person. So if you're out there listening and you're like, I want more of that, reach out to me. We start Gold Standard, right? It's no mistake either. Gold Standard, which we kick off on 3/29. So not this Wednesday, but our first call is the next Wednesday. The energetics of that are about literally embodying your truth so deeply and then using your singular gifts to go out and create a legacy of wealth. And the energy, I've been doing a lot of energy work behind the scenes for everyone who's already signed up. And we entered March, and I was like hot and heavy, in my own tinkering around in the field for everyone who had signed up. And here you are, you've hit your highest month. So I literally couldn't be more proud of you. You are just going to keep on rising. And I'm so honored and proud of everything that you've done, because takes a lot of commitment and tenacity to like own the things that are hard and move out of them. And you have done it brilliantly.
Thank you.
So yeah.
I mean, I've wanted to be a high ticket coach, really coaching people through pain cycles for 7.5 years since I started my first business. But being able to put that into practice, being able to make 5 figures working from home a couple hours a day is cool, but changing people's lives and being able to pay forward and being able to help women transmute so much pain and confusion into clarity is the biggest glow up, as you say.
It's amazing. It's
not about
totally
the money,
amazing.
it's about the ripple effect in the world.
Yep. And the money is just an awesome, capacity for us to be able to then experience our own dreams, and just like make the world better for everyone around us. That's the cool thing about, making money, doing this thing that you love, is then you get to use that currency that you have created to create like actual change in the 3D world. So I love this. Colleen, how can people find you?
Sure. So my name is Colleen Faltot. You can find me on Facebook. I have a private Facebook group, Physically Fit and Spiritually Fed. which is a homage to, my gym stuff, but also my spirituality. I'm actually writing a book called that as well, coming out a couple months. And you can find my private Facebook group, again, Physically Fit and Spiritually Fed. I do weekly live trainings in there, little tidbits every day. And then I'm on Instagram at the Self-Sabotage Coach. Oh, and my
Perfect.
podcast, Power of Pause is my podcast.
Power of the pause.
And it's all about giving yourself the power to pause and recreate patterns, right? Like pausing before you go into these patterns that are on autopilot, and pausing and becoming the person you deserve to be.
I love it. I love it. So yeah, you guys go and find Colleen, jump into everything that she has offered. And I'm so proud of you. And it's a real honor to be on this journey and to be holding space for you to continue to like own how powerful you are, and then see it taking root in everything that you do. So enjoy. Thank you guys for tuning in and listening. And I'm really excited to see how things keep moving, how things keep shifting moving forward.
Thank
All
you.
right. Bye.